Dylan Carter packed more into 24 years than most people do in a lifetime. Picture this. He was a singer from South Carolina, auditioned for The Voice, started a breast cancer charity, owned a whole campground, worked as a realtor, and, on top of all that, still managed to show up at every local community event, singing his heart out because he truly loved being among his people. Everyone who knew Dylan said the same thing. He was the sort of person you just couldn't help but cheer for. On Saturday, April 25th, all of that promise ended in one heartbreaking instant. A car accident in Colleton County, South Carolina, took his life. He was 24, only 24. When something like this happens, you feel the gap between what was and what could have been, and it's hard not to get stuck in that ache. But I want to talk about who Dylan really was, not just a name in an obituary or a news headline, but the actual, messy, vivid person he was. If you caught season 24 of The Voice, you might have seen him. He auditioned with I Look to You by Whitney Houston. You know that song. It asks a singer to pour everything out, vulnerably. Not an easy pick, but Dylan sang it like he meant it. When the coaches turned around, he went with Reba McEntire, and his reason for choosing her floored me. He said, "Something told me to go with Reba. She could be a comforting mom figure for me." That right there, that small, raw truth, tells you what sort of heart he had. Dylan's own mom, Julie, died in October 2022, just a year before he stood up on national television. Imagine the courage it takes to audition for a show like that while you're still carrying newborn grief, and then to seek out someone who could offer just a sliver of that motherly warmth he missed so much. It says everything about the way Dylan moved through the world. He wasn't afraid of caring, even when it hurt. Reba herself put out a tribute this week. She called Dylan brilliant, kind, and talented, and she didn't sugarcoat her loss. She said he brought sunlight everywhere and closed her message with a simple, perfect goodbye. Rest in peace, my dear friend. Sometimes when someone's gone, there just aren't enough words, and you can feel that ache behind what's left unsaid. Even the mayor of Moncks Corner, Thomas Hamilton Jr., couldn't just post a formal announcement. He turned to Facebook and wrote like someone who actually knew this young man and would miss him. The post didn't read like a typical politician's note. It sounded like a friend reaching out in the middle of his own sadness. He said Dylan wasn't just a performer in their town, he was part of their family. He mentioned Dylan's kindness and the hole his passing would leave. Then, in a small moment of beauty, the mayor shared a photo of a rainbow that appeared above the town hall after Dylan died. He wrote that Dylan was finally back home with his mama, and you just have to let yourself pause for a second when you read that, because sometimes the world hands you a little grace, even in loss. Dylan was supposed to play a show in Moncks Corner on Monday, April 27th, the day after news of his death came out. He was booked. People were waiting for him. That's the part that always gets me. He never left home behind. He wasn't chasing some distant dream at the expense of what mattered to him. He was still there, singing for his neighbors, grinning from a trailer stage at some town festival. His last Instagram post really says it all. "I'll take a flatbed trailer over a big stage any day." You don't write something like that if your sights are only set on fame. That's someone who gets where happiness really lives. And Dylan didn't lock his goodness away in his music. He co-founded a breast cancer charity, The Local Voice. At 24, he named it after the show that gave him his shot, as if to say, this platform, this recognition, it all belongs to the community. The people at The Local Voice said he was the very heart of the organization. He carried the belief that every voice matters, and more than that, he acted on it every day. Running a charity would be enough, but Dylan wasn't finished. He owned Sunny Days RV and campground, and he was selling houses too. Think about that for a second. At an age when most people are still working out who they want to be, Dylan was already wearing all these hats: musician, business owner, volunteer, neighbor, son. It's impossible not to wonder how much more he could have accomplished, how much more he would have given, if he'd only had the time. The South Carolina Highway Patrol released the facts of the crash. It happened just after 11 on a Saturday night. A single car, leaving the road, hitting a utility pole and a fence, flipping. They took Dylan to the hospital, but he didn't make it. That's as much as we know for now. But what stayed with me, through all of this, is how complete his life already seemed. Some folks wander for years without ever finding their spark. But Dylan had it. He was at ease with the things that mattered to him, cherishing the simple stages, giving his time, seeking out kindness, holding on to love in the face of loss. His charity, the local voice, says they'll keep going, carry his passion forward. That's what you do when someone leaves behind something that matters. You tend it. You make sure their goodness sticks around. If reading this has moved you at all, I hope you'll take a few minutes to look up the local voice and see what Dylan was building. That might be the best tribute any of us can give him. And if, instead, you need to just sit with the weird, sharp unfairness of a life like his ending so soon, that's all right too. Sometimes that's just what grief demands. Dylan brought sunshine, he brought warmth, he filled spaces with possibility. The world feels a little colder without him, and that's how you know he really was here. Rest easy, Dylan. You're home. If this story touched you, leave a word for his family and Monroe County below. And if you'd like to hear more stories that try to honor real people and real lives, well, a like or a follow would mean so much. Thanks for listening.